In this video, I'm going to make this tree fall down based on a trigger in my path. So when I walk by it, the tree's going to fall down and have a near miss. And my player's going to have a near miss. Oh man, what's happening? Boom, now it's pretty close. I thought that'd be pretty cool. We're going to do the tween service. We're going to change our pivot point so that we pivot right down here at the base when our tween service is making the tree go down. And then we're going to add some sound effects too. Let's go ahead and get started with that. For this video, I'm not going to use a base plate. I'm going to use a flat terrain. So go to templates and then look for flat terrain. Open that up. There we go. We're going to go to workspace, open workspace up, hit terrain, and then I am going to do undecorated. So I'm going to do uncheck decoration. Now let's go ahead and get a tree. I don't feel like making a tree, so I'm going to go to toolbox and under the creator store, we're going to go mesh parts, right? We're just going to get something that somebody made in like Blender or something. And we'll just go ahead and type in tree. You can see I have one under recently searched. Tree, right? This is just basically a fancy part that somebody imported into Roblox. I'm going to drag this tree out. This is the one that I did in the demo. That's the tree that I used. I'm going to close my toolbox. I think I'm going to rename the tree. How about name it to tree? And then brick color, let's make it something. How about dark taupe? I'm also going to need some sounds too. Let's go back to our toolbox. Then instead of mesh part, let's go to audio. I'm going to get the tree falling and then the sound, the ambiance sound. I think it was, I wrote it down, night ambiance. Oh, it showed up. There we go. Was it 2 minutes? By soybean. Yeah, that sounds good. I like that. All right, I'm just going to unpause it. I'm going to go down to starter player, open that up. I'm going to keep my sounds in starter player scripts. Let's hit this plus and add a local script, or you could do LOC if it didn't show up, local, right? And then on the local script, I'm going to add that night ambiance. I'm going to hit insert. Boom. It should have added it right to the script if it was selected. If not, just drag it so that it's on the local script. We're also going to need the tree fall sound. How about we just search for tree fall? Looks like I searched for that one too. Tree falling sound. Here's a 3-second one. That's pretty good. That's not the one I used in the demo, but it'll work. So click on your local script, hit insert, and now you have 2 sounds. All right, let's go ahead and close that toolbox. And I think I'm going to change this local script to, how about sound effects? Sound effects. Let's go back to our workspace. So I'll hit my tab right here, and I'm going to make a little road in front of my tree, or going right by my tree. So let's go to our editor and then hit edit. I'm going to hit paint. I have the brush shape as a sphere. Brush size is 6 studs. Center for pivot position on the brush. And let's select cobblestone. I have it selected by default. You might actually have to select it. All right, let's get our little road. I'm going to go kind of slow and a little bit rickety, like it was an old road. There we go. Country road. That'll work. All right, let's turn this. Let's close this. Now I need to. I think I'm gonna rotate my trunk. Right. So let's go hit the E. Go up a little bit. I got a lot of little divisions in my rotation. So I'm gonna go to model, and then instead of 5-degree increments, I'm gonna make it like 15 because I want to do an exact 180 turn. Now we're gonna need a trigger right here so that when we walk by. You can put it out here a little bit too, depending on how far you want them to be when it falls. Let's look at the spot where we want to put the trigger so we don't have to move it around too much. I think I'll straighten it this way. And then I'm going to hit the scale. I'm going to pull that out. Let's pull it up a little bit so we can't miss it. That's good. I'm going to pull it back here because I want it to trigger and they're going to be walking this way. If they stand in the trigger, they'll get hit with a tree, but I don't have a damage script on the tree. You could do that though. Let's call this part trigger, right? Good. And we don't worry about coloring it because I'm going to make the transparency 1. That's during gameplay. But while I'm working on it, I think I'll make it like 0.8 so I can still kind of see it while I'm working on it. Good. Now let's get the trigger and the tree. So I'm going to do a control click on the tree so they're both selected. And then I'm going to right click. I'm going to group his model. I'm just going to call this tree, or you can call this like tree fall or something. That's our model. Open this back up. We are going to need a server script. So I'm going to hit that plus sign on the tree model and then just hit script. That's a server script, right? And then we can call this something like tree fall or tree fall script if you wanted to say that. I think tree fall will be good enough. Now my tree fall script is a server script and I'm going to trigger the tree falling sound on the client. You could do it here. You just put the tree fall sound on the tree, but I think it'll be better on client. So I'm going to go to replicated storage. I'm going to make a little gateway between the server and the client. I'm going to hit the plus sign and I'm going to add a remote event. And that is the gateway between the server and the client and vice versa. Let's call this remote event tree RE for the tree remote event. And now we're going to go back to our script and I'm going to get rid of that print statement. I'm going to get a variable for replicated storage. I'm going to call it RS. We'll say game get service replicated storage. And then we'll get our tree RE from replicated storage, right? Wait for child, tree RE. Then what else? We need to get our tree, right? Let's do that. Let's get a tree. And we'll say script dot parent. That goes up to the model level. And then we can go down to the tree level. You could just do a dot. That should be fine. But I think I'll do a colon wait for child. Oh, that's the trigger. We want the tree. And now we want the trigger. So local trigger script dot parent wait for child trigger. All right. What else? Let's get player service because we want to check to see if a player triggered the event. We don't want the zombie making the tree fall down or whatever's chasing us, an NPC. Let's make it only for players. So let's get the player service, local players, game, get service, players. And I'm also going to get a debounce because once we trip it, we're not going to trip it again, right? You could reset it, but we're still going to need a debounce if you want to reset. So we'll just call it debounce. I think I'm going to get this right here, this service, do a control X and move it up here where I'm getting the service for replicated storage. Keep these singletons together, right? That should work. Now let's make an event handler for when the trigger part is actually touched. So it's setting off the trigger, right? So we'll say local function. I'm going to say on trigger. You call it on touch too, right? As long as it makes sense. On trigger is good for me. And I'm going to say other part. That's the part that hit the trigger, right? And it could be a foot, it could be a head or whatever. We want to make sure that whatever touched it belongs to a player. So I'm going to make a variable called player, local player. We're going to get the player service. And then we have this cool method called get player from character. And if we put the other part dot parent, if the other part is a hand or a foot, the parent will be the character. And then if the character is actually a character from a player, we will get the player back. If not, if it's like a zombie or something else, player is going to be nil. So we have to check. We have to say if player. If it's nil, it's going to be false. It's not going to fire. If it's a player, it's going to be good. All right. So if the player exists and, debounce, got to make sure our debounce is still true. Then debounce, we'll set that to false. We're only going to fire this once. Oh, I hit it true. We're only going to fire this once. And then let's fire our tree RE. We'll say fire client. So we're only going to fire it to the player. If you wanted everybody to hear it, there is a fire, fire all clients? Here, let's check. Because you might want that, right? So fire all clients. It'll play on everybody's computer. But fire client is fine. I'll just do a control Z here. There we go. Fire client. All right. And then let's just print it out, right? Say trigger was triggered. Cool. And then we got to get that. We got to get that thing hooked up, right? Let's go ahead and move our code up a little bit. And the trigger is the part. And then we'll say touch. That's the event. If somebody touches it, it's going to fire. We're going to connect that to on trigger. See those 2 extra parentheses? It'll cause an error. It's been doing that for the last 5 years. But you just got to remember to get rid of them, right? You just want the function name right here. Now we could go ahead and play it. We should see this. Nothing else is going to happen yet, but this is a good place to test. So view, oh man, you know what? We need a spawn location, don't we? Our tree's way over there. That's going to take forever. Let's do this. Let's go here, model, and then spawn. I'll move it back a little bit. Probably going to have to turn it too. Let's see how we enter the world. Yeah, well, we'll just rotate that next time we get out of the game. Okay, look down here. It said hello world. So we have another script there. I think that was the client script for sound effects. Boom. Trigger was triggered, and we have to make this can collide off. Looks like we have the anchor though. It doesn't look like it's moving around. Let's do that. Let's do a little bit of cleanup. So turn my game off. Got rid of the output window. I'm going to rotate this so that we're facing our trigger. Cool. I'll move it back a little bit. There. And then this right here, our trigger, turn can collide off. Make sure anchored is on or it'll fall through. Oh, it wasn't. It wasn't on. It would fall through the ground. You wouldn't know what was going on. I think I'm gonna fix that a little bit too. Yeah. Not bad. Now, we are sending something to the client. It's just the client isn't catching that. Let's change that. Let's work on the client and get the sounds playing. So let's go over here to the Explorer window, and we're going to move on down to starter player scripts. And how about sound effects? Let's open that up, and then we have that print statement. Get rid of that. Let's get our remote event. So we need to go to replicated storage, local RS for replicated storage, game, get service, replicated storage. You want to do the tree RE right here, tree RE, replicated storage, wait for child. There it is, tree RE. What else? We're going to need our tree sound. Where is that? That's on our script, right? So script, definitely do a wait for child here, right? Because the load up time is going to mess you up if you don't have that. And then tree fall, right? Let's do, the night sound, right? So we have our ambiance. Let's just call it night sound. Script, wait for child, night ambiance. All right, now we can just play our night sound, right, when we start. So we'll say night sound, and then I'm going to do play. But remember, it was only 2 minutes. If you want to play forever and ever and ever, go over to night sound, and then we're just going to go down here. We're going to look for looped. Now, if you guys know anything about the sound service, you may want to investigate that. It gives you a little bit of flexibility of what you could do with your sounds, a little more control over them. But I am not going to do that. I am just going to play the sounds. Also, down here, we're going to capture the remote event for the tree RE so we could get our falling sound. So we have our tree remote event or tree RE, and we're going to do the on client event. We're going to capture this event by connecting it. And I think I'm just going to do the function right in line here, make an anonymous function, and then we'll play the tree sound here. So tree sound, play. All right, let's test it out. Now, go back to our game. We're going to hit the play button, take a look for errors, right? Ooh, we hear our ambiance sound. And now we're going to run. Yeah. So we heard the trigger, and it doesn't play again. That's all right. It's because we've got the debounce. But now we can make the tree fall, and then we'll be done. Let's turn this off. And we'll get rid of our output window. I am going to go back to our tree fall script. If you lost it, you could do show and explore. Boom, there it is up here at the tree. Now we want to do the tween service to make our little tree animation or fall. But what I think I'm going to do up near the top of this script, I'm going to make a variable called goal. How about goal C frame? And that's going to be when the tree's already fallen. That's going to be the goal position for our tween. And I'm going to do a C frame new, and then I need to get the values here for our finished C frame product. So let's go to our tree fall vid. Take a look at this. I'm going to go to model. I'm going to move the pivot on the tree so it's right down here. And that way we can just rotate it down. Otherwise, when we do our animation, this is going to be the beginning C-frame, that's going to be the end, and it might not quite look real, like a fall. All right, so let's click that pivot point. Ooh, and that pivot point is on our model. We want the pivot point of the tree. So I just clicked the tree. That's the tree pivot point, right? You may have to turn snap off because that sometimes makes it hard to move. So I'm going to move this pivot point out a little bit. I'm going to move it down a little bit. Let's take a look at where we got it. Doesn't have to be perfect, but get it close as you can. Like right where you might think it might fall. I think that's pretty good. It's not perfect, but it's not bad. And what we could do is we could do this. Hit the rotate, right? And then we're going to rotate the tree. I keep clicking the model. Rotate the tree, right? So let's do it. Boom, boom, boom. See how it's rotating on our pivot point? I could move that pivot point out a little bit too. I'm just going to hit a Control Z because I didn't quite get it back to where it was. Let's move this out. Up, Control Z again. Pivot. There we go. It's a little bit weird. That should work. That's pretty good. All right, now rotate my tree. So I'm going to hit rotate. I'm going to make sure it's the tree, not the pivot, right? And then, I want to change these degree increments. I'm going to change it to 5-degree increments. And then we'll move this down. Cool. Is that about right? Think that looks good? I think that looks good. We're going to keep it here. We're going to play the game, and we're going to print that value out as the goal position, and then we're going to put the value right in here. So we just basically moved it into the place we want it when it stops falling. Let's get the print. I will say print, and we'll say tree pivot point, right? We're going to get the C-frame of the pivot. So tree pivot C-frame. How's that? That's pretty descriptive. And then we'll say tree. There's my tree. And then colon get pivot. All right. We're going to get that in the output window and then paste it in here. Let's play it. We'll go to, so view is already selected. Output. There we go. I'm going to grab this number. Copy. I right-clicked and copy popped up. Turn that off. Go back to our tree fall. And then I'm going to paste it. Control V or right-click paste will work. Let me close this window. And you can keep it all in one line. It's fine. But I'm going to move it to other lines so we can see it. And then I'll just undo it. Right? So you'll have different values depending on where you put your tree. But that is the fallen position, the goal of our tween. Now let's go back to the workspace. There we go. And I'm going to click here in the scene somewhere. I'm going to do a Control Z, and it's going to put the tree back to where it started. If you lost it for some reason, it doesn't work. You just have to do it manually, right? Just move it back. Start position, goal position. Now we can do our tween to make it happen, to make it fall down. I'm going to go back to tree fall. Now up near the top of the script right here, I am going to make another variable, local, and this is going to be for the tween service. So I'm keeping my services together, right? You could put it down on line 8 if you wanted to, but I like to do the get services all. I like to group them up if I can. So get service, tween service, right? We're going to need that service. And then I'm also going to need a variable that I'm going to call TI for tween info. It's going to have the information we need for the tween. This is not a service. It's just an object. Tweeninfo.new. First parameter is going to be how long the tween takes, like in seconds. And I'm going to say 2. I know our sound is 3 seconds, but we may have to increase it, or we could speed up our sound if we need to. All right, so we have 2 seconds. we are going to do this enum dot easing style. Now, what is that? If we do the dot, we have a whole bunch of different things we could pick for easing style. I'm going to pick exponential, but you can have stuff like, there's one cool one for bounce. Oh, here's bounce. Bounce, it'll fall and then bounce on the ground. So our animation has different effects and different ways of reacting depending on what our easing style is. So I'll put exponential, right, where we start out slow and then we speed up, right? And then, but bounce is cool, so you might want to try bounce. Do a comma, enum dot easing direction, right? Now, do we want it to speed up at the end or do we want it to come in fast? And if you do in, it actually speeds up at the end. These are not always easy to figure out. Just play with it. If it's not what you want, you just pick out, right? And then in out is like the event happens in the middle. So if you have like a bounce, it'll bounce in the middle, right? But exponential, it's in. What else do we need? Oh, repeat count. How many times do we want it to repeat? I'm just going to say 0. And then the next one up here, do we want it to reverse? That's actually pretty cool, especially for a spooky night. Let's do false though, right? We're just going to have it fall. But try true and see what happens. It's cool. I'm going to move this to the next line. Boom. Oops, we got too much IntelliSense going on there. There. Hopefully you can see that. Now let's go down to our on trigger, right? And this is where we sent the sound to the client. I'm going to put the tween stuff underneath. I don't need this print statement anymore. I'm going to delete it. And I need my start C frame for my pivot, right? I'm just going to say start CF. That's the tree standing upright. And we could do tree get pivot, right? So it's going to get the pivot of how the tree is positioned in the world. However, it is when you trigger this and it's standing upright, right? It's standing upright. Then we're going to do something else. We need a C-frame value, right? And that's instance new C-frame value. We need to store our C-frame because remember, we're going to change it. We're going to tween on the value of the C-frame, the pivot point, the C-frame's pivot point, the pivot point's C-frame, right? And then let's do this. Oh, let's get the CFV value. So the C-frame value's value, which is kind of a mouthful, is going to be the start CF, right? Our tree standing upright. We're going to put it right in here. Let's go down one more. This is a little tricky, and I used this in my airdrop video too. So we're going to make a connection for the C-frame value, and then I'm going to do a colon get property changed signal. We are going to look for the change in the value of the C-frame value. Then we are going to connect to an anonymous function. I'm going to change the lines in a second. And then that we're going to get the tree, and we're going to pivot to whenever the value of the C-frame value changes, we're going to pivot to the new C-frame value. I know, it's really hard. And as a programmer who's been programming for a long time, when I first saw this, I thought it was crazy. And then I did it a few times. So if you do it a few times, you're going to start getting it, right? So we're just looking at, we're going to say, hey, when this C-frame value changes, let's update this with that value, with that change. Here's where it gets tricky. Not tricky, but hopefully it'll clear a little bit though. Not maybe it will, maybe it won't. Let's do our tween, and we're going to get the tween service, the TS, create, oh my goodness, create C-frame value. So we're going to tween on the C-frame value. We're going to use the tween info with how long it takes and the easing stuff. And now we're going to say, we're going to do the curly brackets, value, goal, C-frame. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, let's get this, which currently is in the beginning position, and we're going to tween over that 2-second period so that the value of the CF value becomes the goal C frame. Every time there's a change, we are going to update the position of the tree. Yeah, you're not going to get that at first, right? You're just going to have to play with this for a while. After you do like 3 or 4 of them, you'll start getting it. So don't be frustrated if you don't understand. Just copy it and see if you get it working, right? Now, don't forget to play the tween. That's the most common error. When we get down here, if you wanted to tween in some other way, or you wanted to have something at the end of the tween, you'll have to do this tween.completed wait, right? And that's going to hold our script up until we complete the tween. Otherwise, it's just going to fire it off and then just keep going. So if you chain tweens together, you need to wait for one to end before the other begins. We don't need it here. I was just going to show you because it's not going to make any difference with this script. But if you want to do more than one tween, let's go ahead and hit the play and see what we got, right? There's a little thing, a view, output. Oh, we still have our printout. That's fine. Oh, you know what we got to do? We got to anchor that tree. Let's do that. The fall looks pretty good though, right? The fall looks good and then start bouncing around. It's all right. We can fix that. The cool thing with the tween is you could have the part anchored, right? Because you're not controlling it in gameplay. So go down to, with the tree selected, the mesh part, not the model, the mesh part. Anchor it. Now let's try it again. Here we go. Yeah, that's not bad. You want to do a reverse and see what happens. Look at no errors. That's good. That's good. Let's play around with it a little bit. Let's take a look. You can try speeding it up. You can try slowing it down with this. But let's do this. Let's make it go back, right? We'll go true. That was for reverses, right? And this is a good way to get good at tweening. Most of it's in the tween info, right? You go here. See it bounce back up. That's pretty cool. All right, and so you could change some other things. Do we turn the, instead of I'm going to make this false. Do false. So it just falls once. And then I'm going to come down here to, come over here to workspace. I'm going to make this invisible. So I want to hit the trigger. The trigger is the box. And transparency, I'll make that 1. So it's totally invisible. We can't see it. I also want to make it like kind of dark too. So we'll go to lighting. And lighting, how about, that's what, 14.5 is, I think, what, 230. Let's do, how about 18.5? What is that? 630. How about 1800? And you can do your geographic latitude too, if you want to make it. Oh, look at that. You have time of day too. You can change it here. Nice. Anyway, that's cool, right? I play it. It's kind of hard to see on the video though. That's why I didn't do it with the video. Ooh, pretty spooky. Oh, near miss. You could put a damage script on that too. It'd be pretty good. All right, I will see you in the next video.